Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it is wonderful to connect with you. Joining us today is Holly. Now, Kostrzewski, did I pronounce
It's
that?
stressful to say, Kostreski.
Kostrzewski. Because I meant to ask you that beforehand and then I forgot all about it. So
It's
now I'm
okay.
asking you.
I forgot to say it too. I always say it. Yeah, K-A, the word stress and the word key.
I'm going to write that down right now. So from now on, I'm going to pronounce it the right way. I have a thing about mispronouncing people's names. I don't like to do that. So Kostrzewski, right?
Correct. Yep.
Got it. Now, I know Holly from Mic Drop Club, from we are both keynote speakers. We'll get into all of that. But Holly is an international keynote speaker, consultant, and storyteller who has inspired over 1 million people across the United States, Canada, and New Zealand. She is a survivor of a traumatic brain injury at 18 and the daughter of a paraplegic. Holly brings a rare blend of lived experience, humor, and heart to every stage and conversation. Holly, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thanks, Dana. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Just you have experienced so much in life, and I love the way that you've taken your journey and turned it into something that will help other people. So, you mentioned a keynote speaker, traumatic brain injury, and you have your own business. Where would you like to begin? And we will just kind of weave back and forth and kind of get your story told.
Um, yeah, I guess I can just start at the beginning. So I sustained a traumatic brain injury at age 18 in a motor vehicle crash. My passenger was not wearing his seatbelt, and so his body flew into me. And I sustained a coup contra coup brain injury, and my ear imploded or burst from the impact of his head hitting my head. And I always like to say that because I've also been a public servant and worked in traffic safety for 22 years. And so that's why it's important everybody wears a seatbelt in the car because you just people can be flying objects. People can hurt other people if they're not belted in.
Wow, that in the coup contra coup, I used to work in neuropsychology on a
Yeah,
rehab unit, so I
yeah.
understand the hitting on the first part of the brain and the contra coup it slams on the back part of your skull, so you're getting hit in the front and the back.
Yes.
How now I've also worked with traumatic brain injured people and
Yep.
understand it impacts them in a myriad of ways.
Mhm.
Take us back to when you were 18 years old and now you're in the hospital after this accident. How did this fairly significant traumatic brain injury impact your day-to-day life?
Oh gosh. So I had to live with my parents till I was 29. It wouldn't have been safe for me to live on my own. So I didn't know that, right, of course, at the beginning, which is probably good because that would have been even more devastating. But I had to learn to read, write, walk, and talk again. And I failed occupational therapy and physical therapy multiple times. And I thought it was my fault. But in retrospect, it wasn't a good learning environment for a brain injured person to be in. And that's why I failed occupational and physical therapy so many times. If you put me on a table with 4 other people also learning the skills they needed to learn, and I was learning a different skill, but with all the noise and the fluorescent lights and all of that, it was too much stimulation for me. Um, and so I really kinda just went inward, because I didn't have a lot of memory, and so I didn't really and I moved, because my mom had moved, and so I moved with my mom for a change of pace because my dad was tying up stuff on our farm. I grew up on a potato and grain farm, and we thought it wouldn't be good for me to stay there with my dad while he tied things up when all my friends went to college, and then so I moved to a new adventure with my mom, and my dad came later, but I one day I drove to the college that had accepted me, but I had not planned on attending because my neuropsych test said that she's very bright, but she probably won't be successful in college. And they were concerned that I would fail out and then I would never be able to get accepted into a college again. And I was very stubborn and also bored, having been told I can't work and I can't go to school. So I drove up to this college and said, "What classes can you take with half a brain?" And yeah. And
Holly.
And I the person in charge of people with disabilities put me in a 4,000 level logic class and another 4,000 level class, and I said, "I don't think you understand. I am a freshman, and unfortunately, I have a brain injury, and here's my neuropsych documentation of what I may be good at." So I dropped out of college before I even started. And then my mom ran into the recruiter that tried to get me to go to that college, and he then said, "I've got one more advisor for her to try." Not the disability advisor, because that's the one that put me in the 4,000 level classes, but this advisor was the international students advisor. And he was my advisor for the next several years, and he helped me get into classes where they had study guides and review tests, and teachers were compassionate and helpful, and it did take me 5 years, but I graduated, and I graduated with honors, all while learning to read, write, walk, and talk again. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, being a psychotherapist and looking at this psychologically, I'm putting myself in your shoes and kind of just hovering over that time of your life where your friends are moving on
Yeah.
and your life has been sidelined and you now, I mean, it's one thing to sit here and say, "Yes, I had to learn how to walk and talk and all that," but let's just stop there for just a moment,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, it's
Because
a lot. It's
the
heavy.
experience of that is
Yeah.
and like we said before, listeners, I explained to Holly before we started recording about how I really like to talk about on Phoenix and Flame, what was the flame that burnt you to the ground and what did it feel like sitting in this pile of ash? And and then also in the end, what did it help to pull up as a phoenix? What helped you to rise? But you can't rise unless you've been burnt and you're in the pile of ash. It's a
Yeah.
cycle. And we
Mhm.
hopefully we go through these cycles over and over and over again. It's not comfortable, but it's
Right.
very transformative. So for you, I'm thinking what was that experience like? How did you keep going? Psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, how did you keep going when you couldn't do the most basic of things and you were in your 20s, you were in your
Mhm.
early 20s, mid 20s trying to do these things. You said you were failing out of
Mhm.
occupational therapy, physical therapy multiple times, which must have been I don't want to put words in your mouth. Just what did that see? I
Devastating.
can how did you
Yeah.
keep going? How I mean, why didn't you just say, screw it, I can't, I'm just a worthless human being. My life's over. I'm just gonna flop on the couch and eat potato chips and stay here the rest of my life. Why what I mean, gosh.
I I first of all, I don't know, but I really admire 18-year-old Holly. I really I admire her 18 to 26-year-old Holly, uh, and I don't know how I did it, and probably because of the brain injury was kinda helpful, I would imagine, in a way, because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know I didn't know it. So, it probably was a buffer in retrospect, and so I just was so stubborn and determined that I was gonna figure this stuff out, that that's what I did. I just got up and I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and I kinda had blinders on that I that was my only focus, is I was gonna get better. I was gonna get better. And I was a semi-professional dancer, starting at 3 until my crash, and that was my goal is I just wanted to dance again. I just wanted to dance again. But even getting on a treadmill, the vibration would hurt my brain. I can't I lost the ability to keep beat. So I can see dances in my mind to this day. I can choreograph in my mind, but I can't tell you if it's on 6, 4, or 8. I lost that ability. Um, but I am so grateful that I was born to the family I was, because that they were my rock, and that's who helped me, and that's who knew if I wasn't safe or I wasn't making a good decision or, she's really having problems, she needs some more help. How else can we help her? And, if I wouldn't have had the parents and the sister that I have, I don't know. I owe a lot. I owe an awful lot to my family, for protecting me and for helping me.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, one of your parents is a paraplegic. Is
Yeah,
this
mhm.
correct?
This is. So that wasn't when you said that you go to the flame and you burn down over and over in time, when you asked me that, I'm like, "Well, I have 3 burn downs." I can specifically name 3. One is the brain injury, then it was 14 years later, my dad fell and became a paraplegic. 14 years after my brain injury, my dad became a paraplegic. He fell, and he requires, is at home with us, but he requires a lot of assistance and help. And he's a very private man, so that's about all I mention about him. But that burned me to the ground. I remember sitting in the spinal cord and brain injury rehab hospitals are together. And so I had been a motivational speaker speaking about my brain injury, I believe as a way of therapy to be helpful to others because I just really didn't want other people to have to go through what I went through. And so I became a motivational brain injury speaker at a lot of prevention things for kids or high schools, and then at brain injury conferences. And then I kind of stopped for a while because I wanted to go to graduate school. I wanted to work on my own career, and I was a little bit sick of my story. And and I just didn't want to be the brain injured Holly anymore. And then um, because I like to say that there's kind of a decade lost. I kind of lost a decade. So I'm kind of decade behind everybody else. So when I was at my late 30s, I was really at my early 20s. Does that make sense? You
It
know?
does,
So
it does, I understand
a-
you.
and so then when my dad got hurt when I was 34, I could kind of see it better that I had was sitting in the rehab hospital with him, and the hospital he went to, it was a spinal cord injury floor, and then a different floor was a brain injury floor, so they weren't together, but, they were still in the same hospital, and I'd been asked so many times about poems I'd written when I was in my acute phase of my brain injury, and if rehab hospitals could have my poems, and I'm like, "Well, I just don't know what I'm gonna want when I'm 40 out in the world." So I just always kind of privately kept that stuff. And then I was sitting in that rehab hospital with my dad, and I'm like, this is why the families asked for that because they needed it. They needed those poems. And then I felt guilty for not sharing them because now I was the child of a seriously injured person. And I had only been the seriously injured one. I'd never been the family member of one. My mom, my dad, my sister had been the family member of the brain injured, the seriously injured one. But now here I am seeing what it feels like to be the daughter of a paraplegic. And how do you negotiate life when he can't do anything below the nipples for himself? And so how do you help him? How do you help your big strong farmer dad that was the strongest man you've ever seen now in a chair? And I thought, "Oh, I have to talk about this again because I have a different viewpoint because now I've been seriously injured and I live with a serious injury, but now I'm also the caretaker and daughter of somebody that's seriously injured." And that really burnt me down. That was, I think, harder for me to experience my dad getting hurt than for my own myself being hurt. Because I think that maybe when you're watching somebody else, it's a little bit harder. Maybe and especially too with a brain injury just because you constantly forget. So, that's why I think the brain injury helped me a little bit, because I couldn't always see what was wrong with me. Does that make
You know,
sense?
it makes a lot of sense, and as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about how we identify ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Mhm.
about your situation and also about your dad, and you describe him as a, big strong man,
Yeah.
and, and I know you said he's a private person and we're not gonna, go on
Yeah.
out, and I just wanted to point out for anyone, sometimes we identify a certain way,
Mhm.
and, like, for example, I know someone who a woman who was, beautiful. I mean, one of those people that you look at twice when you walk down the sidewalk, and then she went through a series of things that caused some facial disfigurement,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I always kind of wondered what that process was like for her, that when what we identify with is taken away and
Yeah.
we have to switch. So for your experience of what you witnessed, your dad or somebody else in your life going through, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, this turns quickly and easily into my 3rd burn. I guess I'm just gonna tell you my 3rd burn. So, I was a federal employee that lost my job this year, and I had been a traffic safety professional for 22 years, and then when I had to start looking for a job, I thought, "What am I? Who am I?" I mean, yeah, I'm a keynote speaker, but I don't just wanna be the brain injured speaker anymore. I wanna build this, and I want to so I built my new keynote when we were in class in academy together. My new keynote is the junk drawer. And you think about all the stuff that's in your junk drawer, and everybody has one somewhere in their house, but this is like a mental junk drawer. And how do you pull those pieces of good out of the junk that you've experienced because we all have junk in life. It's not all shiny, it's not Instagram, it's not the most beautiful kitchen on Pinterest, but people like compare themselves to that. They don't compare themselves to other people's junk drawers. And we all have a junk drawer.
We
And so
do, totally
how do you
do.
how do you get to the other side of hard? Because like you said, I love that you said that over life you're going to burn multiple times. And when you said that, I thought of my brain injury, my dad becoming a paraplegic, and now this, losing my federal job and my public service after 22 years. And I, you know, ho- I don't think in the brain injured world you talk about you lose the sense of self, or it's a fractured sense of self because you're very different than you were before.
Yeah.
But I and so I did lose my sense of self when I lost my memory and all of that, but with my dad and with the job loss, I didn't like with job loss, I lost, like, who I am professionally, but then also I know I'm a keynote speaker. So that was good for me that I had another avenue that I've been building for over 20 years, because if I didn't have that, I think I really would have been lost this last 6 months. And so I think that you have to just remember you're more than any job and you're more than anything that happens to you. There's so many things that people love you that are beyond, uh your health condition, what your face looks like, what your job is. Like, people don't love you because of that. They love you because you're funny. They love you because you text back the funniest memes. They love you because you're thoughtful or you're a good listener or you'll get to play cards with them or whatever it is, right? Like, that's why people, and I think we get so hung up on the outer stuff, right? Like what society labels us as, and then we label ourselves as versus who we actually are.
Mhm. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about this topic of identity and
Yeah.
also how it dovetails with your signature keynote, the junk drawer, stop hiding the hard. That
Mhm.
because I think that at times when what we have always identified with, or what maybe was easy to identify with, something we always got attention for, something we always got accolade for, something that was naturally very easy for us to do, for whatever reason, is stripped away.
Yeah.
Maybe it was an accident, maybe we lost a job, who knows what, but it was taken
Mhm.
away. And then, because I'm thinking, and then we kind of have to go because we don't have anything. It's like being in a room where all the furniture's been sucked out,
Mhm.
and you're just standing in this empty room with the junk drawer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking at that point, sometimes that's when we have to go open up that drawer because at that point, that's all we have left.
That's all I got. Yeah.
When everything else has been taken away, that's all you've got. So you go and you open up that drawer. So I'm curious about your thoughts about the correlation between identity and when everything else has been jerked out of the room and all you've got is your junk drawer. What are your thoughts on that and how that plays into your keynote and your passion for that?
I think that everybody has a junk drawer and there's stuff everybody's hiding, right? I just read something a couple weeks ago that said every person has a secret, a private, and a public self. And so that really made me think about my junk drawer keynote because, like, what are people hiding that they don't want to share with others? And if maybe we felt a little more comfortable hiding our junk moments and what's in our junk drawer with each other, it would be people might be a lot less anxious, a lot less depressed, and a lot less lonely because they'd see that they're not alone. There's others just like them out there, that are going through really hard stuff right now. And it might not be the same, but it's still hard.
That's fabulous. That's one of the main reasons why I first started this podcast because being a psychotherapist, I was hearing multiple stories day after day of
Mhm.
people struggling. They're walking their life journey and they're having a hard time. And I would sit there and I would sit there with them in that moment and kind of help them to process through and develop coping strategies. But they would say, I feel like I'm the only one.
Yeah.
They would say I walk past people in the hallway at work and everyone seems to have it all together. I go to the mall and you have, pretty people with big sunglasses on. Only I would know that these pretty people with the big sunglasses on are in my office the next day.
Right.
But I
Right.
couldn't say that because of
Right.
confidentiality. So
Right.
that was one of the reasons why I created the podcast is so that people would know, you know what? We all struggle. We all
Yeah.
have similar frustrations and overwhelm and aggravations and fears, and you are not alone. We are a part of a
Mhm.
collective. Here's my question. You were talking about the things that are in our junk drawer that we want to hide,
Yeah.
that we don't want to share.
Mhm.
My question to you is, why do you think we don't want to share?
Embarrassed. Shame. Shame, I think, is the one of the heaviest things to carry. There's so many times I pretend I wasn't brain injured, or I wouldn't check the disabled box, or I went to college, a beautiful college, and it sits on top of a hill, and I'm in northern Minnesota, so it gets snowy and icy, and there weren't sidewalks. And so the neurologist said, "What else do you need? How else can I help you be successful?" And I said, "I don't know what to do about parking. I'm so scared. I have to park at the bottom of the hill. It's icy. My right leg drags. My right arm cripples. I'm scared I'm going to slide on the ice." And she said, "Well, you could get a handicap pass." And I am like, "Oh no, I can't have a disabled pass. Why? I'm not disabled enough." That's the other thing. Am I enough? Right? Am I enough? And so I did get it, and I was shamed at the DMV. They were questioning why, because there's nothing looks wrong with my face. And I don't, if I had a penny for every time somebody said, "But you look so normal." And I'm like, "You can't see my brain. You can't see anybody's brain. I don't know what I'm supposed to look like." And so I think about it took a long time before I felt really comfortable saying, "Well, I have a traumatic brain injury," in my professional life. In my keynote speaking and with speaking, and if you Google me, it's everywhere. But if you didn't know me, I wasn't necessarily going to say, "Hi, I'm Holly and I have a brain injury." Just like you probably wouldn't say, "Hi, I'm Holly, I have cancer," or "Hi, I'm Holly, I have diabetes," or whatever it is that I just got divorced, whatever it is. And so
Definitely.
I think um, shame, I think is a really heavy thing that people carry around and they're embarrassed and they don't think that anybody could be having as tough of a go as them at the moment.
Mhm. Wow. So much in what you just said. I'm just like writing notes over here. So, okay, I'm gonna toss some things out.
Sure.
My glasses keep falling down. Um, One of them is when I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about how I train people in boundaries because I use yard analogy where I have my yard and there's a property
Mhm,
line, and
mhm,
then my neighbor's yard is over there. And
mhm,
in my yard are my thoughts, feelings, and actions, which I have a right to.
mhm.
And it's my responsibility to honor these and be accountable for these. They're mine. Like we would be responsible for our own yard, for mowing our own yard. It's our
Right.
yard, right? If it
Mhm.
gets long, it's because we're not mowing it. But on the other side of the property line, though, is my neighbor's thoughts, feelings, and actions, which I did not cause, I
Yeah.
cannot control, and I clearly can't cure. If they have flying monkeys going on over there, that is not my, those are not my flying monkeys. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is that I'm thinking about shame. I'm thinking
Mhm,
about why we don't want to share the hard things, why we hide things. And, I'm wondering how it would change if we tried to know, not wonder, but know that other people are going to criticize. Other people
mhm,
are going to reject. They are going to judge. It's not if, it's
mhm,
when. And saying
mhm,
to ourselves, you know what? They're going to do that. And I'm going to let them.
mhm.
I'm gonna be okay. If I share this hard thing and somebody thinks I'm something because of it, and they wanna have some opinion about me because I shared this hard thing, okay, let them.
Let
And
them, yeah.
that is a boundary statement where we allow the other person to have whatever they wanna have in their yard, and we come back in our own yard and we're very honoring of it. And
Mhm.
that's and sometimes our own yard is the issue because we're ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah.
We're the ones, the shame is not from the other person's yard, it's in our yard, and so we have to deal with how we see ourselves as well
Mhm,
as how someone else views us.
mhm.
Um, Now 2 other things I wanna toss out, I'm gonna toss them out both, and then I'm gonna let you kinda pick whichever one you however you wanna to respond.
Sure.
Am I enough? You made the comment about how do we do, and am I enough is huge. Right?
Mhm.
And I know we as keynote speakers and going through the Mic Drop Academy and all this kind of stuff, I mean, basically, you get thrust into this group of amazing, fabulous, smart women,
Yeah.
which is good. This is
Mhm.
good. But also what happens is you're constantly looking at women who are doing things better than you are, right?
Yeah.
And so this am I enough, sometimes does this other person think I'm enough? And sometimes it's do I think I'm enough? So
Mhm.
the where am I enough? I'm very interested in the origin of that question. Do
Mhm.
they think I'm enough? Does the audience think I'm enough? Do I think I'm enough? And what your thoughts are on that. And then one last thing I'm going to toss out is you said about people look at your face and they
Mhm.
say, "Well, you look just fine," right? But they
Mhm.
can't see your brain.
Mhm.
I've heard other people make similar comments that have experienced emotional abuse.
Mhm.
Or sometimes they would say, "I would almost rather have visible bruises that I
Yeah.
could show to someone and say, 'Look what this person did to me.' And they can see it, I can see it." But when we go through emotional abuse, which in my mind is a lot worse,
Mhm.
it's much more insidious and
Mhm.
long-standing, that we can walk around looking and appearing just fine,
Mhm.
but the emotional abuse is not visible, and I've talked to multiple women and mostly women, but sometimes men as well, that have experienced that and that frustration that they look a certain way and other people have trouble grasping what they're really experiencing.
So, the thing that has sat on my heart for a long time. So my dad's been paralyzed for 11 years, and he's very private. So at first he didn't want us to tell anybody, not even his siblings. And we said, it would be helpful if you talk to others. And he's like, "No, this is my business. I'm private. I don't want anybody to know." So then my mom, my sister, and I held that for him until he was ready, because he's also a vulnerable adult and we're his caretaker. So we have to respect, obviously respect, but also protect.
Right.
Um, but when I had to mention it at work to some colleagues, and they said, "Oh, at least it's not cancer. Cancer's bad too, right?" Or they said, "At least he has his arms." Those at least comments and the diminishing of the grief, that's why people, I believe, that's why people are ashamed to share and they're embarrassed, because the toxic positivity. And when I lost my job, I could tell you, I said, "I'm gonna start punching people's teeth out if they tell me chin up one more time," because it's not a chin up situation, right? Like, this isn't, or they'll say you land on your feet, or all these comments people take. And I really wish people would just like sit with whatever somebody's feeling comfortable enough to share with you. They're sad, and just be quiet and just let them share. And don't come back with one of these quirks, toxic positivity, land on your feet, chin up, at least comments they did with my dad. Um, because that just made me feel more alone, and it shut down the conversation for me. And it also made me realize they weren't a safe person for me at that time. So that's when I set up my big, strong boundary steel fences with those particular people, because I'm like, "You're not actually here for me. You're just nosy. You want the information. You want to know what happened, and get to give me some quote that's on a sign at the Hallmark store."
Mm. That is absolutely because we have to vet people for safety. I call
Yeah.
those our tender
Yeah.
bits. We have our tender bits, and people have to earn the right
Yeah.
to hear those tender bits. And if we
Yeah.
don't vet them, it's like throwing pearls before swine, right? They're just stomping them into the mud. And those are our pearls, right? Those are our tender
Yeah.
bits. And so
Yeah.
it's our
Love that.
responsibility to vet people,
Yeah.
and it's their job to earn the right to hear that. And when someone, like you're saying, when someone has proven themselves to be not a safe person to
Mhm.
share our tender bits with, then we do, like just what you said, we set up that boundary and we might be cordial to them,
Mhm.
but we're not going to share anything emotional.
Mhm.
We're not going to share anything personal because they have proven that they are not a safe place to share that.
Right.
And
And I think it's really hard for people when it's family.
oh
When
gosh.
when it's family that's the unsafe. I learned a phrase at my old job that was called psychological safety, and you have to feel psychologically safe, right, around different people.
Yes.
And I think that's the same that you're saying with your safe people, interview for the safe candidates. And my husband and I have had this conversation many times about who I feel safe with right now and who I don't feel safe with right now. in our family, who I feel safe talking about my grief as I transition into a new career or a new phase of life. As I come from burned ashes up, as I'm trying to rise. I'm trying so hard to rise, but my wings are broken right now, so that's why I think it's been good for my keynote business because I can work on this presentation being in the heart again, but also really think about who's safe to me and who can I actually share that I'm really sad with, and who I can't share that with, 'cause I
Well,
can't I can't handle one more chin up right now. I just can't. It's not helpful.
you know, have you ever watched Brene Brown's video clip
Yeah.
about sympathy versus empathy?
Oh, no, but
Oh my
yeah, I
gosh.
love I love her. I'll have to look it
When
up.
we get I'm gonna send that to you.
Okay.
When you watch it, you are going to chuckle. I
Okay.
mean, because you just about had the script right
Oh,
here about the difference between somebody being sympathetic, which is at least, right?
yeah.
Versus someone who's truly empathetic who will just sit with you in the dark space and go, gosh, that sounds bad. You know,
That's terrible.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, and just sit there with you, but it's kind of her video clip is kind of funny, but
Uh-huh.
it's about, and if you're listening, look up, Google Brene Brown, Brene Brown, sympathy versus empathy video clip. And it's exactly what Holly just described. Well, Holly, our time is about up here. So I know that the listeners are going, "Oh my gosh, Holly's amazing, and I want to know more about her. I possibly want her to come bring her fabulous signature keynote to our group and all the things." Where do you want them to go to get more information about you so they can connect with you and possibly ask you to come bring your keynote and everything to serve them?
Oh, this is so exciting, Dana. This is my first time because my new website is launched and I haven't gotten to tell anybody. So your listeners are going to be the first. Yay! Woo woo! So it's hollyspeaks.live is my website. www.hollyspeaks.live.
Awesome.
And my Instagram is Holly Kostrzewski.
Now we'll have all this in the show notes. All right. Holly, this has been amazing. We have known each other we've been in the classes together because we went to the
Yeah.
academy together. Now we're both, I'm giving a plug to Mic Drop Club,
Yeah.
which is a women's public speaking group started by Jess Ekstrom and Lindsay Picardo. And I mean, Holly and I are both hosts,
Yep.
and I'm a host. I'm in Johnson City. And now, are you in Minneapolis? Is that where your
Yeah.
club
Twin
is?
Cities. Twin Cities Mic Drop Club. Yep.
And so if you're whoever's listening, if you're in any of those areas, you can either go to the in-person there or you can go to, I think it's what,
Yeah.
micdropworkshop.com
Hmm.
slash club.
Club.
And then you can see all the cities, but really it's a monthly, you get once you become a club member, you get a monthly course. It's an hour and there's so much fun. It's a class that happens once a month remotely, and
Yep.
then every quarter it's in person where you get to go and just really connect with other women speakers in a safe place to get better about,
Mhm.
speaking and feeling more comfortable doing that. It's so exciting.
And I love too the fact that whatever price you start, if you sign up today, that's the price you're locked in for life. Like they're not going to raise your fee, and I love that about it. And
Yes.
I also just took the Mic Drop workforce guide training. So I'm a guide if people want to enhance their I have testified in front of legislatures and county boards and city councils. And so if you want to help gear up your presentation at work, let's say you don't want to be a keynote speaker like we are, but if you want to just like figure out how to be a better presenter at work, I am one of those workforce guides and happy to come to you and your company.
Wonderful. That is awesome. Awesome. Holly, thank you for blessing us with your time and your energy and your experience and your vision and just being with us today on Phoenix and Flame.
Thanks so much, Dana. I'm so happy to be here. Johnson City, Tennessee.
Oh my gosh. Now, listeners, I know you have heard multiple things today that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have got to tell my best friend, my family member, my coworker, some of these things that Holly said. So take this podcast episode, copy and paste the link in text, in email, Post it on your favorite social media sites so we can grow our Phoenix and Flame community and reach out and let people know you are not alone.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being part of the Phoenix and Flame family. I hope your day's been great. I hope the rest of it is fabulous. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.